Hola, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, and we're here. We're here, and we're here, and we're. So I wanted to go over the Commonwealth's case on Karen Reed. I was told that you have to see this document. You have to read it, but there's a lot of documents. But I guess we're going to start here with the Commonwealth. Some people in the chat earlier were asking, is there a trial right now? No. Today is the day off. The trial resumes tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And Friday, another day off. So plan your schedule, plan your vacation time, your kids' time. There's so many days off during this trial. You can work around your summer vacation. What's up? Thank you, Stephanie. And we did a members live this morning. And just a FYI, if anything takes off today, like a chase or whatever else, that's going to be on the second page, because now we won't have notifications till tomorrow. I want to save the notification for tomorrow morning. So anything we do the rest of the day is ICADML space CC. Okay. It's kind of hot in here. I turned on 2 fans pointing air out. Hopefully it cools down. Let's get started. Karen Reed. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts. How do you say Massachusetts? I feel weird saying that every time. Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. The case that they have. The allegations that they have against Karen. Ready? I skimmed through a couple of pages before starting this. I feel like, I was told you have to read this, but it's some of the story, pretty much the story we've been told throughout the trial so far, but, I don't know what the other pages have. January 29, 2022, at approximately 6:04 a.m., the Canton Police Department received a 911 call from a woman reporting a male party, subsequently identified as John O'Keefe, found in the snow on 34 Fairview Road. Fairview Road being a publicly maintained roadway within the town of Canton. At the time of the 911 call, there was an active blizzard occurring with heavy snow, and the temperatures in the teens. So throughout the trial, a lot of what's come up is the weather, the snow, how many inches. Pause. At the time of the 911 call, there was a blizzard with heavy snow and the temperatures in the teens. Officers Saraf and Mullane, both of the Canton Police Department, were dispatched to the scene along with Canton Fire and EMS. Officer Saraf was the first officer to arrive on scene, where he observed 3 females waving at him from the front yard area of the residence. Looking at the residence of 34 Fairview from the street, the 3 females were in the left corner of the property in the area of the flagpole and fire hydrant. So these 3 females we know are Karen, Jennifer, and Carrie. Officer observed the victim lying on the ground as 2 females were performing CPR on him. So Karen, Jennifer, Carrie, which these were big testimonies. Carrie said that supposedly she got a call at 5 a.m. from Karen saying that John is dead. And Jennifer told her story as well. Red Solo cup. Oh, I should have poured my water in a Solo cup. I'm tripping. Damn. All right. So they're performing CPR. The 3 females were identified. Officer Sarah further observed the victim to be cold to the touch and not breathing. He returned to his cruiser to retrieve his AED device, which that's a defibrillator. However, at this time, Canton Fire and EMS arrived on the scene, took over resuscitative efforts. Paramedics transported Mr. O'Keefe to Good Samaritan Medical Center in Brockton, where he was pronounced deceased. We know all that. Justin Rice, I think, testified already during the trial. Lieutenant Paul Gallagher, Detective Sergeant Michael Lank. We've heard that name a lot. Sergeant Sean Goody, heard that a lot too. Also, the Canton police arrived on the scene moments after 911 call had been received. Following the victim's transport from the scene, they began to search for any evidence around where Mr. O'Keefe had been discovered. They located a broken cocktail-style glass and multiple patches of red that appeared to be blood in the vicinity of where the body had been located. The Canton officer secured the glass and 6 blood samples from the snow as evidence. To this day, the blood still puzzles me. How there's only those samples that were collected in the red Solo cups, where there wasn't more blood. I don't know if they're going to explain that or not. Later that morning, the Massachusetts State Police Department was notified and responded to the scene as well. The DA, District Attorney's Office, Trooper Michael Proctor and Sergeant Bukaki, I think it's Bukaki there, were among, is that the same guy? Yeah. Were among the troopers whom responded to the scene and began interviewing witnesses. They first spoke to Miss McCabe. Miss McCabe indicated that she and some friends were at the Waterfall Bar and Grill on the evening of January 28th. She arrived with her husband Matthew at approximately 9. At approximately 11 p.m., Mr. O'Keefe and Miss Reed arrived at the Waterfall together. Miss McCabe stated that Mr. O'Keefe and Reed had been in a dating relationship approximately 2 years, and that Reed stayed at Mr. O'Keefe's house most nights. Miss McCabe observed Miss Reed walk into the bar holding a glass cup from C.F. McCarthy's with a clear liquid inside that she believed to be was a vodka soda drink. Okay. So they're saying she brought her own drink inside, I guess. Okay. Miss Reed had entered the Waterfall with the glass inside her coat. What the? Inside her coat. So she had liquor inside, I guess. Dangle inside the coat. Mr. O'Keefe and Miss Reed had been at C.F. McCarthy's, a bar across the street from the Waterfall prior to coming to the Waterfall. Miss McCabe observed Mr. O'Keefe to be wearing a baseball hat, jeans, and sneakers. She stated that the defendant and the victim appeared to be in a good mood and did not observe any arguing between the two throughout the course of the evening. She further described the atmosphere within the bar as friendly with no arguments amongst any of the patrons. This description of the group and atmosphere within the bar and between the defendant and the victim was consistent with each of the witnesses present that the troopers interviewed throughout the course of their investigation. Okay. As the bar began to close down, everyone within their group was invited back to 34 Fairview Road. The residence of Miss McCabe's sister, Nicole Albert, and her husband, Brian. She observed Mr. O'Keefe and Miss Reed leave the Waterfall together. As Miss McCabe was arriving at her vehicle, she received a text from Mr. O'Keefe asking where to. At 12:14 a.m., Miss McCabe replied with the address 34 Fairview. At 12:18, Mr. O'Keefe called Miss McCabe to ask more specifically where the house was located. While inside the residence, following her arrival, Miss McCabe observed a black SUV consistent with Miss Reed's vehicle, a 2021 black Lexus SUV. Arriving in the front of the residence from her vantage point at the front door of the home, Miss McCabe texted Mr. O'Keefe at 12:31 stating hello. And again at 12:40, pull up behind me. Referencing her vehicle's parking spot within the driveway to the home, located on the right side of the property. If looking at the residence from the street, Miss McCabe then observed the black SUV move from its initial place where it had stopped on the street near the driveway and then proceed to the left, to the other side of the property where Mr. O'Keefe's body was subsequently discovered. So from one side to the other. Discovered in the later morning at 12:45 a.m. Sorry, I read that wrong. Where Mr. O'Keefe's body was subsequently discovered later in the morning. At 12:45 a.m., Miss McCabe texted O'Keefe again, hello. and then observed the SUV drive away from the home. This is kind of a big deal here. 12:18. So he texts her where to. She replied back with the address. At 12:18, he calls her. I don't know how more specific you can get if you give the address, right? Or 34 Fairview Road. I don't know. So he calls her, according to this, and she tells him more specifically where the house is located. While inside the residence, following her arrival there, she observed the black SUV, consistent of Miss Reed's vehicle, arrive at the front. From her vantage point at the front door of the house, she texts John at 12:31, hello, and again at 12:40, pull up behind me, referencing her vehicle's parking spot within the driveway. Okay. She then observed the SUV from its initial place where it had been stopped on the street near the driveway, then proceed to the left side where Mr. O'Keefe's body was subsequently discovered. It's just weird. So they go to the house, and they're closer by the driveway area. He texted her, then he called her, then she texts him. Why not call him? And the car just moves from one side a little bit to the other side of the house. Why didn't he text back? Why didn't he say anything? What was going on outside? Okay. So then at 12:45 again, and they think he died around this time, right? Between 12, or was it the 2 something? Let's just keep going. I'm getting all my times mixed. Okay. So the car moves over from one side to the other. At 12:45, Miss McCabe texted John again, hello, then observed the SUV drive away from the home. That's weird as shit. Ain't it? Oh, 10's upset. You have to be certified stupid to think Karen did this. You're embarrassing to humanity. All right, and you think there's like 20 people involved. Okay, and so it goes from here. At approximately 4:53 a.m., Miss McCabe stated that she received a phone call from Miss Reed looking for Mr. O'Keefe. The defendant sounded distraught over the phone and drove over to Miss McCabe's home. The defendant told Miss McCabe that she last remembered seeing the victim at the Waterfall bar. That's weird. That is weird. Why would she tell, if obviously they drove to the house? The defendant, Karen, told Miss McCabe that she was last remembered seeing the victim at the Waterfall bar. That's weird. Miss McCabe then informed the defendant that she observed the defendant and the victim leave the bar together. Miss McCabe also later informed the defendant she had seen them in Miss Reed's vehicle in the front of the home. Now, I think this is the part where the defense is kind of poking holes, because I don't know that Jen actually saw John, right? I think she saw Karen, maybe. Or did she say she saw John? The defendant also informed Miss McCabe that she and the victim had gotten into an argument the last time that she had seen him. Shortly after the defendant arrived at Miss McCabe's home, Miss Carrie Roberts arrived there as well, as she had received phone calls from the defendant that early morning looking for the victim. Miss McCabe then drove Miss Reed's vehicle from her house back to Mr. O'Keefe's house, as she was too hysterical, and Miss Roberts followed along in her vehicle. Okay. While driving to Mr. O'Keefe's house, the defendant stated to Miss McCabe, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Miss McCabe stated that the defendant also told her about a cracked taillight on her vehicle. Once they arrived to the victim's home, the defendant had Miss McCabe look at the cracked taillight, which Miss McCabe described as the passenger side right rear taillight, as cracked and missing. Miss McCabe and the defendant then entered Miss Roberts' vehicle. Miss McCabe, okay, Miss Rocky, I remember this part too from the trial. entered the vehicle to go look for the victim. The defendant was seated within the back passenger side, okay, while Miss Roberts drove and Miss McCabe was seated in the front passenger seat. Miss McCabe stated that they turned onto Fairview Road from Chapman Street, and at the time, it was snowing heavily with the wind blowing, creating poor visibility. Miss McCabe stated that just prior to 34 Fairview, there's a cluster of trees, and immediately the defendant stated that she saw the victim. The statement initially confused Miss McCabe and Miss Roberts, as they were unable to see Mr. O'Keefe's body lying in the snow. Miss McCabe stated that the defendant screamed to open the door and ran directly over to the body near the cluster of trees, laid on top of him for warmth, and began CPR. Miss McCabe stated that the victim was lying on his back, covered with approximately 6 inches of snow. That's a lot. With his phone on the ground underneath him. The defendant yelled at Miss McCabe twice to Google how long. That's the story. Okay. That's the story, at least from what McCabe is saying. Now, the 2:27 time, that's going to have to be up to the experts to take that up, because that's very questionable to me. The reason I thought Carrie Roberts' testimony was really good is because Jen, a lot of people don't find her credible and stuff, but I don't see any reason why they would find Carrie, not credible. So much so that the defense even had nothing to say to her, bro. Like, they're just no questions. And she literally said, because there were some people too, they were like, oh, well, she didn't say anything that would point the finger at Karen. She literally said Karen called her at 5 a.m. that told her John was dead. I wonder if it's in this or not, or was this added later. But all right, let's keep going. So lying on his back, Jen McCabe claims that Karen told her to look up how long you have to be left outside to die from hypothermia. On January 29, the troopers interviewed Mr. Matthew McCabe. Mr. McCabe indicated that he has known of Mr. O'Keefe for approximately 8 years and had met Miss Reed on a handful of times. He stated that he was at the Waterfall Bar on Saturday and observed the victim and the defendant enter together. He observed the victim be wearing and that's the thing. Did the baseball cap ever come up? Baseball hat? I don't know. I haven't seen that yet. He observed the victim to be wearing a baseball hat with a curved visor and Miss Reed to be drinking a clear liquid drink, possibly vodka. Mr. McCabe stated that he left the bar last from his group and was heading to his in-laws on 34 Fairview. He entered his vehicle and his wife, Jennifer, was on the phone with the victim telling him to go to 34 Fairview. While at the Fairview residence, he observed a large dark SUV pull up in front of the house on the street. He had been looking out the open front door through the glass storm door and described the SUV's positioning as initially parked in front of the house. Mr. McCabe looked out the window some minutes later and observed the same vehicle had moved toward the left side of the property. Minutes following that, he observed the same vehicle driving off down Fairview, heading in the same direction it had been facing while parked. Troopers also interviewed the homeowners of 34 Fairview, Brian and Nicole Albert. Both confirmed that they had been at the waterfall the previous evening with the family and friends and left around closing and returned to their home. Throughout the evening, they both indicated that the victim and defendant, neither of whom they knew particularly well, entered the bar and joined their group. They indicated that several people from the group had been invited back to their home following the bar. Yeah, I definitely think that they knew each other more than they let on, from everything that I've seen during the trial. But then it goes to say, they claimed they didn't know each other too well. Then several people from the group had been invited to go back to their home following the bar. I guess you're just inviting random people to your home, I guess. And several arrived, staying for approximately 1 hour. Neither, I mean, that's not too crazy, but neither were aware that the defendant and the victim had planned on coming over, although they would have had no issue if they had been aware. Neither heard nor saw anything outside of their home over the course of the morning until they were awoken by Miss McCabe. Troopers also interviewed Ryan Nagel. Mr. Nagel's sister had been at 34 Fairview on the evening of January 28, visiting with the Alberts for his son's birthday. Mr. Nagel stated that he had been contacted by his sister asking for a ride. His friend drove with Mr. Nagel in the front passenger seat and his girlfriend in the rear cab of his friend's F-150 pickup truck to Fairview. As the truck was driving down Cedar Crest Road, he observed a set of headlights of a mid-sized SUV, black SUV, coming from the opposite direction of Cedar Crest, and the truck he was traveling in yielded to the SUV. Okay, so everybody's seeing a black SUV at the house. Making a right turn onto Fairview and then followed behind it after executing its left turn onto Fairview, Mr. Nagel stated that the truck stopped directly in front of the driveway to the home, and remember the black SUV stopping along the right-hand curb toward the left side of the property. Okay. So the truck stopped directly in front of the driveway, and then he remembers the black SUV stopping along the right-hand curb toward the left side of the property. Okay, so just basically what everybody else is stating that they saw. He remained within the truck while his sister exited the home and asked them to come inside. He remained within the truck while his sister exited the home and asked them to come inside. He declined the invitation, and his sister eventually decided to stay at the home and make other transportation arrangements. As his sister returned to the house, Mr. Nagel observed the black SUV pull up an approximate 1 to 1.5 car lengths to the far left edge of the home's property, where the flagpole was located, along with some bushes. He stated that the SUV's driver did not appear to place the vehicle in park. At any moment, he observed it as its rear brake lights were illuminated throughout his observations, to include the third top center light. Mr. Nagel reported hearing no noises come from the interior of the SUV. Mr. Nagel indicated that his friend pulled away from the side of the road. When they were leaving, they drove past the black SUV. As he observed the interior light within the vehicle, a Caucasian female operator seated in the inside of the vehicle, holding the steering wheel at 10 and 12, staring straight ahead of her. Okay. This case has been exhausting. Yeah, it's kind of... let me see. Karen Reed hired a PR firm to go after the Alberts and McCabes. That's what I've heard. I don't know if it's true, but I have heard that. Michigan Wifey says, I can't believe Mickey Mouse reading this. He knows it's all fake news. I was told to read this. I was told to check it out. Well, I was told to read all the sides. So I figured we'd jump on because I've never read this whole document. But this, so far, is everything that's been already kind of claimed and stated throughout the trial. It's almost like a summary of the state's case. So later that day, troopers Matthew Dunn and David Dicio interviewed Miss Carrie Roberts. Miss Roberts stated to them that at approximately 5 a.m. she received a call from the defendant stating that John did not come home. It was snowing and she was worried. The defendant further stated that Miss Roberts, John's dead. Carrie, I wonder if he's dead. It's snowing. He got hit by a plow. To me, when I heard this in the trial, I was like, boom. I was like, wow. Because the defense, the defense had nothing to say to this lady. Nothing. Some people were, oh, sarcasm. Well, sorry, Michigan. I didn't get it's been kind of crazy on Twitter, so I'm not catching the sarcasm. to me, this, I mean, to other people, maybe this is not so big. To me, this is a big deal because, like, you know, Jen with the Google search that we'll have to see what the experts say and like all this butt dials or deleted stuff. But the one person that I thought, or at least the most credible or no motive, I thought, was Carrie Roberts. You know, and so I feel like people brushed her testimony under the rug as if it didn't exist or doesn't matter. That's a big deal. So, yeah, she claims that she got this call at 5 a.m. from Karen. The thing with me, I'm trying to think about Karen, like, according to this document, she almost tried to deny to Jen, if Jen was telling the truth, tried to deny to Jen that she was even at the house, the 34 Fairview. And Jen was like, I saw you there. Like, I saw your car there. But anyway, Karen supposedly drops off and leaves John to go, like, whatever. She claims he went inside the house. They say he didn't. But if in the morning you wake up and he's not home, you know the last place that you left him was at the house. Why would you not go back to the house? Or did she? She went to all these other people, calling all those other people. Or is what the claim that she was drunk, is what they're saying? Karen was drunk? NAP says the defense will call Carrie Roberts to the stand. Okay, well, I'm going to wait for it and see then. Twitter PTSD. I'm going to wait for it and see then. I'm going to hold out. They got to do something with this testimony because to me that was big, but all right. Miss Roberts got dressed and left her in her vehicle, eventually meeting the defendant at Miss McCabe's home, where she observed the defendant to be hysterical. Miss Roberts stated that she believed the defendant was still intoxicated in the morning and had told her that she did not remember last night. Miss Roberts reported that the defendant stating to her, "I was so drunk, I don't even remember going to your sister's last night." That's crazy. Referring to Miss McCabe's sister, the homeowner of 34 Fairview. Miss Roberts followed the defendant's black Lexus SUV back to Mr. O'Keefe's house. They went inside the home for a period of time looking for him to no avail. Why? Why? That doesn't even make sense to me. Why go? Miss Roberts then. This right here is like contradictory because, okay, on the Karen side, people say that she dropped John O'Keefe off at the house and that there was an altercation. They possibly beat him up in the basement and they left the body out for dead. Why, unless they're claiming this is all made up, why would she go back to O'Keefe's house? Why call Carrie? Why call Jen? Blah, 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 if you knew that you left him at the Albert's house, right? That shit don't make no sense to me. Make it make sense to me because I'm trying to understand that. So, okay, so Miss Roberts then drove her vehicle with Miss McCabe. After they couldn't find him in the house, Miss Roberts then drove her vehicle with Miss McCabe in the front passenger seat and the defendant in the rear passenger side to 34 Fairview. She and Miss McCabe were scanning the sides of the roadway along the drive, looking for the victim, while the defendant periodically screamed and texted on her phone as they drove. Miss Roberts described the weather as whiteout conditions as they were driving around. As they arrived in the area of 34 Fairview, Miss Roberts stated that the defendant screamed, "There he is, I see him." From the inside of the vehicle, she screamed to be let out. Even after initially exiting the vehicle, Miss Roberts stated that she still could not see the victim in the conditions and further stated that his body was covered in snow. So, you know, after leaving John's house, all three of them are in the vehicle, and they're saying somehow Karen in the back seat had the vantage point. They were sitting in the front, they didn't see this shit. Somehow Karen sees this shit from the back, and he's covered in snow. Oh my God. Richard, thank you for the super chat. Says, Someone said, Bukaki, I'm here for it. Where is it? Thank you for the 5. This is interesting. All right, so let me ask you this: did Carrie Roberts lie? I almost want to. I don't know if I should make a tweet. I feel like I need to leave Twitter alone for a while. So let me ask you this. I'm going to ask it. So did Carrie Roberts lie in her testimony? I know I should leave Twitter alone because this shit's wild out, but I'm genuinely wondering what the theory is with Carrie Roberts. To me, that's like let's tweet it. That's spelled damning wrong. I don't even know. Yeah, you want to do a poll here? Okay, let's do a poll here. The poll. Did Carrie Roberts lie? Yo, Michigan, you filed for that. She said, hell nah. And let me see some folks disrespecting. Oh, no, actually, you meant that in a funny way. I'm legit asking, though, because I feel like her testimony was good. And now that I'm seeing, I have yet to see anybody say like that Carrie was lying or poke holes. And I'm not basing everything on Roberts. I'm not. Multiple Jen said it as we're reading this now. Jen said it, the paramedics said it, but I'm just the reason I'm going off of Carrie Roberts is because she's the defense didn't cross-examine her. They said they yielded, and also there's nothing they can say about her. Like all these other people, they can try to connect them and poke dots and put this and that. And honestly, even if I wanted to cherry pick and point out Carrie Roberts, let's point out how she lied. Point out how she lied. All right, let's keep going. Let's go. Let me keep reading. Maybe there is some weird stuff. Let's keep reading. Okay. So Roberts says that the defendant said she was so drunk she didn't even remember going to your sister's house last night, referring to Miss McCabe's sister, the homeowner of 34 Fairview. Miss Roberts followed the defendant's black SUV back to Mr. O'Keefe's house. They searched inside, didn't see nothing. Miss Roberts then drove her vehicle with Jen McCabe and Karen in the back. And when they're driving, Karen screams, there, I see him from the inside of the vehicle, and screamed to be let out. Even after initially exiting the vehicle, Miss Roberts stated that she still could not see the victim in the conditions, and further stated that his body was covered in snow. She stated that the victim's body was approximately 12 feet from the roadway. 12 feet from the roadway. So he would have had to, his body, if he was hit by a car, he would have, flew into the sidewalk or the roadway, I guess. 12 feet from the roadway, yeah. She observed him to have a swollen right eye with a laceration above it and blood around his nose and mouth. Miss Roberts stated that they immediately began CPR and Miss McCabe called 911. Miss Roberts stated that she observed the victim to be lying on his back with his arms by his side. Okay, on his back, arms by the side. She noticed that the right eye was swollen shut, that there was no blood coming, and that there was blood coming from his nose and mouth. So this is where people feel that it was like he got beat up, he was in a fight, stuff like that. People believe that. When the paramedics arrived and lifted the victim's body onto the stretcher, Miss Roberts observed the grass underneath the victim's back, okay, not covered in snow as the remainder of the area was. Okay, so the grass underneath the victim's back, not covered in snow as the remainder of the area was. So he had been there for a while, I guess the snow building up. The defendant repeatedly asked Miss Roberts, Miss McCabe, and the officers and the paramedics on scene, is he dead? How many paramedics testified to that? I feel like it was one or two. The weird thing about the paramedics, though, is that they didn't put it in their reports, right? Or did they? I thought the defense said that, like, they didn't take notes of her saying that. I mean, there was that. We watched the interview today, too, in the Members Live, where we should probably watch that interview again. It was kind of weird. Anyway, so they're claiming that she's repeating the phraseology numerous times to each. The defendant further grabbed Miss Roberts by the arm at one point and asked her if they were really working on John or was he already dead. In addition, Trooper Buklao interviewed Nicholas and Karina Kolothias. Both were present with the group at the waterfall on the evening of January 28th. They arrived at approximately 9 and 9:30 p.m. respectively, as they came in separate cars following their daughter's high school basketball game. They had known the victim for approximately 5 to 6 years and had met the defendant a handful of times. They stated that the victim and the defendant arrived at the waterfall together at approximately 11 p.m. Okay. Arriving from C.F. McCarthy's across the street, Miss Kolothias, I don't know how to say that, Kolothias, spoke for a period with the defendant and observed her to be drinking vodka soda cocktails while at the bar. She also recalled the defendant pushing quite a bit for a member of the group, Christopher Albert, the owner of a local pizza store or pizza shop, to go across the street after leaving the bar to keep partying while he made pies for everyone. Okay, they did talk about that during the trial. When it was time to leave, Miss Kolothias indicated that she walked outside with Miss McCabe and observed the victim and the defendant to walk out together and proceed to the left of the driveway and up Washington Street, where their vehicle was parked along the curb, facing back up toward the waterfall. Miss Kolothias indicated that her vehicle was also parked along Washington Street, but a bit further down and facing in the opposite direction. From there, she observed the defendant walking towards the driver's side door of her black SUV. She further indicated that during the course of her conversation that evening with the defendant complained about the victim's mother and the lack of private time the couple had for vacations because of the children and their activities and responsibilities. Okay. She also described her as fine and did not believe the defendant to be overly intoxicated. Okay. January 30th, the troopers Buklao, and Proctor interviewed Canton firefighter Katie. This was a whole big thing during the trial. Katie McClellan. She had been assigned to Station 1 on the 29th and indicated that at approximately 6 a.m., Canton Fire and EMS had been dispatched to 34 Fairview Road for a male party in the snow and unresponsive. Upon arrival, she observed the victim to have trauma to his face and eye area and vomit in his mouth. She observed the victim to be dressed in jeans, socks, and one black Nike sneaker, which I guess yesterday they revealed the other sneaker, I guess. The victim's shirts were cut and his chest exposed for chest compressions. Ms. McClellan had exited the ambulance to speak with the defendant as to the victim's identity and medical history. The defendant provided the victim's name and date of birth. Ms. McClellan asked the defendant if she knew where the victim had suffered the trauma to his face/eye, and the defendant turned to her friend and stated repeatedly, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him." So this is let me pull out the character sheet too real quick. I'll try to give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Yo, I was thinking the other day too, like verdict watch is gonna be insane. And when they come with the verdict. So Katie is friends with, let me just show you the screen too. So This is why people are connecting things and saying that there's more to it, you know. So Katie is Caitlin's friend. Caitlin Albert is Brian Albert's daughter. And so it just kind of goes on and forth. People have made like a whole map of like connections and connecting people, you know. I wonder if they searched her phone, Katie. I don't remember during the trial if they mentioned anything about text messages or anything like that. I just know they connected them as like acquaintances or friends or whatever. But anyway, and I guess for all this to have worked out, people would have to believe that they all conspired to frame Karen, I guess. And so this paramedic person or fire EMS, she's claiming that Karen said repeatedly, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Following their initial witness interviews on January 29th, Troopers Buchnick and Proctor then proceeded to the Good Samaritan to view the victim. They observed 6 bloodied lacerations varying in length on his right arm. The cuts extended from his forearm to his bicep. Both of the victim's eyes were swollen shut and black and blue color. The troopers observed a cut to the right eyelid area of the victim. The victim's clothing, consisting with blue jeans, an orange t-shirt, long sleeve gray shirt, and boxer shorts, were soaking wet and saturated with blood and vomit. Okay, so blood was in the clothes, I guess. The victim also was observed to have one black Nike sneaker with a white Nike logo on the side. On January 31st, Dr. Irini Scordi Bello from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner conducted the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe. The doctor advised the troopers that she observed several abrasions to the victim's right forearm, 2 swollen black eyes, a small cut above the right eye, a cut to the left side of the nose, and approximately 2-inch laceration on the back of the back right of his head. The back right of his head. Okay. And multiple skull fractures that resulted in bleeding of the brain. Wow. Dr. Scordi Bello further advised the troopers that the victim's pancreas was dark red color, indicating hypothermia. That was a contributing factor to his death. The doctor opined from her examination that the significant blunt force trauma injuries occurred prior to Mr. O'Keefe becoming hypothermic. Okay. As evidenced by hemorrhaging in his pancreas and stomach. Mr. O'Keefe had arrived at the Good Samaritan Medical Center with a body temperature reading in the low 80s, which they've talked about this during the trial. The doctor opined that the extensive injuries to his head likely rendered Mr. O'Keefe incapacitated. At approximately 4:30 p.m. on January 29, Troopers Buchnick and Proctor arrived at a residence in Dayton, Massachusetts, the home of the defendant's parents. Okay. So the cops go to Karen's parents. Upon their arrival, they observed a large black SUV bearing the plates, so that, registered to the defendant, parked outside of the garage door in the driveway to the home. The troopers observed the right passenger side taillight to be shattered. Okay. So they go to Karen's parents' house, and they see her car there, and the taillight's broken. Right passenger side taillight to be shattered, and a large red piece of plastic to be missing from the taillight. The troopers were invited into the home and observed the defendant seated on the living room couch. The defendant agreed with the troopers to speak to the troopers. The defendant indicated to the troopers that she had met the victim at C.F. McCarthy's bar in Canton. At approximately 9 p.m. the prior evening. The victim had been there with friends prior to her arrival. She stated that the victim was drinking beers. Oh, God. Tell me. Oh, okay. I thought it was going to be a chase or something. Okay. Oh, might be a standoff. Okay. So the defendant indicated to the troopers that she had met the victim, John, at C.F. McCarthy's bar in Canton at approximately 9 p.m. the evening prior. the victim had been there with friends prior to her arrival. She stated that the victim was drinking beers and she was drinking vodka sodas. She described the glassware she was drinking out of as a vase style. The defendant stated that she and the victim left C.F. McCarthy's and went to Waterfall, but denied that she had taken any drink from one bar to the next. So she's denying bringing the glass with her, but I think at least two people, if not three, I don't know who else, stated that they saw her with a come in with a glass. Anyway, she stated that they were at the Waterfall for approximately an hour, and during that time there were no arguments amongst anyone present there. When she and the victim were leaving the Waterfall, she stated that they were invited to Fairview. The defendant stated that she had dropped the victim at the house on Fairview and went home since she was having stomach issues at the previous bar. The defendant stated that she dropped the victim off, then made a 3-point turn in the street and left. So that contradicts, and again, I know a lot of people don't believe the witnesses, but that contradicts the testimony so far. They didn't say she made a 3-point turn, right? They said that she just drove straight off. And the other thing, too, I don't know. Why are you looking for John in the morning if you know you left him at the 34 Fairview house? Okay, so she says she made a 3-point turn in the street and left. She stated that she did not see the victim enter the residence. Okay. The defendant indicated that she first observed a broken taillight in the morning and did not know she had broken it in the previous evening. The victim was uninjured when she dropped him off at the house. However, when she discovered him the next morning, she observed him lying face up, snow on his legs, his eyes swollen, and blood coming from his nose and mouth. She stated that she began providing him mouth-to-mouth. The defendant further stated that she had attempted to contact the victim throughout the night, calling and texting him numerous times with no response. Okay. I mean, if it was some of the people that I've dated, they would have pulled up to the house. Hello, where you at? I know you in there. If you knew he was inside the house. Okay. So she said she dropped him off, left him there, and she attempted to contact him multiple times, texting and calling numerous times with no response. She stated that they had a verbal argument that morning over what the defendant fed the victim's niece for breakfast. Okay. The black SUV was seized from the driveway of the defendant's parents. The vehicle was transported via tow to the Canton Police Department. Okay. On February 1st, members of the Massachusetts State Police Crime Scene Services Section, a crime lab chemist, Trooper Joseph Paul of the Police Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Section, responded to the department. They observed fragments of broken glass on the rear bumper of the vehicle. The rear right passenger side tail light was shattered and pieces were observed missing from the red and clear areas on the right side of the rear tailgate. A deep scratch and minor dent were observed. On the right side of the rear bumper above the small red light where 2 scratches were observed and one area where the paint was chipped off. Okay. So the right passenger side taillight was shattered and pieces were observed missing from the red and clear areas. On the right side of the rear tailgate, a deep scratch, minor dent were observed. On the right side of the rear bumper above the small red light, 2 scratches were observed in one area where the paint was chipped. I think one of the arguments too that the defense was trying to make, like, how do you know what like wear and tear, like what was there before, what was there after, type of stuff. It's called emotionalism. It's a side effect of her MS and causes overreaction. Laura said, I left a comment yesterday about Karen Reed was reacting to John O'Keefe not coming home. It's called emotionalism. It's a side effect of her MS causes overreactions and abnormal reactions. Okay. So troopers from the cars unit performed a rapid acceleration, forward and reverse tests with the vehicle and noted no deficiencies with the vehicle's braking system or other operations. The troopers placed a training figure resembling a human approximately 6 feet in height behind the Lexus. The vehicle was operated by a car's trooper and documented with video from the crime scene. I wonder if we'll be able to see something like that during the trial. The vehicle was placed in reverse and started to travel toward the training figure. The rear view camera within the vehicle was operating properly, displayed on a screen in the center of the dashboard, and provided a 360-degree visual. As the Lexus traveled closer to the figure, both auditory and visual cues within the vehicle sounded off, indicating an obstruction to the rear. In addition, forensic scientist Maureen, she testified, Hartnett responded to the Canton Police Department that date, as well as observed and took samples from the Lexus. She noted damage to the rear of the vehicle on the passenger side, including a dent with chipped paint in the truck door, a broken taillight, scratches on the bumper, and apparent hair. This was a big thing too. Yesterday, the single hair that was found, an apparent hair was noted on the rear passenger side quarter panel. Apparent glass was also noted. Also noted on the rear bumper. I'm really curious to know more about this reverse test that they did. Okay. Also on the 29th, the Massachusetts State Police Special Emergency Response, CERT, was activated to assist in searching for possible evidence outside of 34 Fairview. Members from the CERT team located a black Nike sneaker with a white Nike logo along the side, matching the one worn by the victim at the time his body was discovered. In the same area where the body had been discovered, 2 red plastic pieces of taillight were located, consistent to the pieces missing from the defendant's black Lexus. And the thing with this, the defense, I think, were kind of pointing out that they were saying that the scene wasn't secured and that they weren't given the green light until I think nighttime or something, or the evening. On January 31st, investigators observed video from the Ring cameras affixed to One Meadows Avenue, the residence of Mr. O'Keefe. The video was observed by utilizing the Ring application on the victim's cell phone. The data in the application showed that 2 cameras are connected to the victim's account under his email. The 2 cameras cover the front door and the driveway to the home. Okay. From 6 p.m. on January 28th through 6 a.m. on January 29th, the Ring application showed approximately 15 events between the 2 cameras at the residence. Investigators observed on the Ring video from the driveway camera that the defendant's SUV leaving the right garage door and traveling out of the driveway onto Meadows Avenue and turning left onto Pleasant Street at approximately 5:08 a.m. on January 29th. Okay. So, the morning, at around 5 a.m., she leaves the house. Investigators were not able to locate any Ring video of the same SUV arriving at the home prior to that. Okay. The victim's Chevrolet Traverse SUV The victim's Chevrolet Traverse SUV was parked in the front right corner of the driveway as the defendant's SUV exited in reverse from the garage, coming close to the victim's SUV. As the defendant's vehicle exits the driveway, the troopers observe her right passenger side taillight to be broken. So, I think what Karen's people, the argument was that when she came out, she hit his car. Is that what she's trying to say? And that's why the taillight broke? I mean, I feel like I've heard so many different things because I thought they said that, like, the cops broke it and planted it or whatever. But that morning, January 29th, she's seen leaving the house. And the taillight was broken. Damn. Vehicle exits the driveway. The troopers observed her right passenger side taillight to be broken and said that it was coming close to the victim's SUV. What are the chances, huh? Everything. What a crazy, like, there's so many things that happen tonight. It's crazy. All right. On February 3rd, Trooper Evan Brandt from the crime scene services arrived with Trooper Proctor at the home and documented all sides of the traverse. Oh, but they checked the traverse and the garage doors. There was no damage observed anywhere on either vehicle or the doors. On February 1st, Trooper Booknick and Keefe traveled to C.F. McCarthy's bar and spoke with the manager of the bar. They reviewed and secured video from inside the establishment from January 28th and receipts. From the interior surveillance video, the troopers observed Mr. O'Keefe walk into the establishment wearing jeans, black Nike sneakers, a gray and dark gray long sleeve shirt, and a dark baseball hat with an American flag on the front at approximately 7:37 p.m. Along with his friend Michael Camareno, approximately an hour later at 8:51 p.m., the defendant enters the bar. Okay. So he walks into the establishment at approximately 7:37 p.m., along with his friend Michael. Approximately an hour later at 8:51, the defendant enters the bar wearing black jacket, black boots, black pants, a handbag, small purse, and a white shirt underneath her jacket. 7 minutes later, at approximately 8:58 p.m., the bartender hands the defendant a tall, cylinder-style glass containing a clear liquid with lime in it. At approximately 9:15 p.m., the victim hands the defendant a cylinder-style glass with a clear liquid and lime in it. At the following times, the troopers observed in the video the defendant receiving a shot glass with clear liquid in it, which subsequently pours into her cylinder glass. She subsequently pours into her cylinder glass. So 9:20, 9:33, 10:22, and 10:29 p.m. I guess these are the timestamps. At approximately 9:57 p.m., the bartender is observed handing the defendant a tall cylinder-style glass with clear liquid in it and a shot glass with clear liquid in it for a total of 7 shots. So they literally say they have this on camera and video. Okay. Everybody was drinking that night, but I know one of her interviews that I saw, I think she tried to deny the amount of drink she had. Everybody was drinking. The cops were drinking, kids, everybody. It's crazy. All right. At approximately 10:40 p.m., the victim and the defendant are observed leaving the bar with the defendant holding her last drink in her right hand as they exit. Also on February 1st, troopers traveled to the Waterfall Bar and reviewed and secured both interior and exterior surveillance camera footage as well as receipts from the establishment as well. From the interior camera, the troopers observed the victim and the defendant enter the bar at approximately 10:54 p.m. The defendant was observed grabbing the drink as she walked into the waterfall within her right hand. So I guess they're talking about that glass thing. The defendant was observed grabbing the drink. She walked into the waterfall within her right hand and walking to the left side of the table/screen. The defendant was also observed on this video consuming 2 additional drinks, 1 shot and 1 mixed drink during her time at this bar. Okay, for a total of 9 drinks between the 2 establishments at approximately 12:10 a.m. The defendant walks out with 2 females leaving through the front door. Okay. Moments later, the victim standing alone at the table takes a sip from a short cocktail glass and then walks out the front door holding the glass in his right hand. From the exterior camera, the troopers observe the victim walk out at approximately 12:11 a.m. carrying a short cocktail glass in his right hand. Okay, so he had the glass. They literally have him on video with the glass in his hand. Okay. Meet up with the defendant, and the two walk together toward Washington Street, where the cars are parked, I guess. The troopers also observed from the exterior camera that it appeared to have just begun snowing with a light coating on the ground and cars within the parking lot. On February 2nd, troopers Dunn and Moore were canvassing the video footage in relation to the investigation. They proceeded to the Edward J. Lynch Jr. house at Pequitside Farm on Pleasant Street in Canton. There, they were able to retrieve a video footage from the town's IT director, who confirmed that the date and timestamps on the video were correct. The troopers also viewed video from the Canton Town Library external cameras on February 3rd from the Temple Beth Abram. Both the library and the Temple cameras overlook Washington Street and Canton. The distance between these two buildings is approximately 1 mile. From the library video at approximately 12:15 a.m., the troopers observed a large black SUV consistent with the defendant's Lexus traveling on Washington Street and continued toward the Temple. 4 minutes after the victim and the defendant exited the waterfall, okay, so that's what they saw her vehicle going down Washington Street. And then at 12:17 a.m. from the Temple video, the troopers observed a large black SUV traveling by the building toward the intersection of Washington and Dedham Streets in the direction of Fairview Road. Let me pause for a second. I think we're almost done. On page 17, almost done. It's 20 pages. My phone keeps blowing up. I don't know what's going on. Okay. What are you guys thinking so far? All right, let's keep going. From the library video at approximately 5:11 a.m., the troopers observed a large black SUV traveling down Sherman Street, take a left into Washington, and travel in the direction of the waterfall. At approximately 5:15 a.m., the troopers observed a large black SUV traveling away from the area of waterfall on Washington Street, crossing over Sherman, and continue on Washington toward Temple. From the Temple video at approximately 5:18 a.m. The troopers observed a large black SUV traveling by the front of the building toward the intersection of Washington Street and Dedham Streets. In addition, troopers received via a search warrant the defendant's Verizon cell phone records. Lieutenant Brian Tully of the police department examined said records and was able to plot the defendant's movements while the phone was in use for various periods of time. The phone's movements coincide with the directions of travel of the black SUV observed on the videos from the library and the Temple during both time frames. On February 22nd, both the 10-year-old nephew CF and the 14-year-old niece KF of the victim were interviewed at the Norfolk Advocates Children's Center in Foxborough, Massachusetts. The children indicated that they lived with their uncle, the victim, for approximately 8 years following the passing of both parents. Dude, those kids, I feel so bad for those kids. Just never ending, like, just bad situations in the family. And now their caretaker, uncle, deceased as well. Both children indicated that the victim and the defendant had started dating approximately 2 years ago, after having dated some time before in the distant past. They both indicated that the defendant would stay over their house on Meadows Avenue several nights a week. PF stated that the defendant and the victim argued a decent amount of time. PF recalled a recent argument over groceries and the victim expressing needing a break from the defendant. Interesting. After that particular argument, the victim wanted the defendant to leave, their house. However, she refused. Wow. PF indicated that he had left the home on January 28th at approximately 8 p.m. for a sleepover at a friend's house and was not present at the home overnight. PF indicated that neither he nor his sister had access to the Ring system, but believed that the defendant did from the family computer within the home. KF indicated that during her interview that the defendant and the victim had argued a lot toward the end, approximately 2 or 3 times a week. She further stated that approximately a week prior to January 29th, she was sitting on the stairway inside of the house while the victim and the defendant were arguing. KF stated that she heard the victim tell the defendant that their relationship had run its course. Okay, and it isn't healthy. She stated that the defendant did not want the relationship to end and refused to leave their house. KF stated that she had gone to bed at approximately 11 p.m. on January 28th. So there's problems going on right before all this stuff happened. So they go to bed at 11 p.m. on January 28th after her friend had left and was awoken by the defendant at approximately 4:30 a.m. with the defendant screaming and acting frantic. The defendant ran into the victim's bedroom to retrieve KF's cell phone, and KF then began texting and calling the victim with no response. I mean, why would she grab the kid's phone? I mean, maybe I don't know. I guess she thought maybe he'd pick up, even though she probably knew what happened. But the defendant then had KF call Miss McCabe, and that's weird. Why? The defendant had the child, call Miss McCabe and put the defendant on the phone with her. After speaking to Miss McCabe, the defendant left the house and took KF to call Mr. Camarano to come pick her up. KF indicated that during her interview that the defendant changed her story several times while speaking to Miss McCabe on the phone, with initially the defendant stating that she and the victim got into an argument and she dropped him off. On January 29, troopers also recovered Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone and were subsequently able to forensically extract the data from said phone. The forensic extraction of the call logs, voicemails, and text messages between the victim and the defendant, including the date of January 28 through 29, detailed strains within their relationship, the victim's desire to end their relationship, and the defendant's description of their relationship with them and the 2 children together as toxic. The troopers recovered several voicemails from the victim's phone from the defendant. Okay. Following the time period they were in front of the residence at 34 Fairview, in which the defendant screamed to the victim that she hated him. So I haven't heard any voicemails yet, right? I wonder if they're gonna. Do you think Karen Reed is gonna testify? Should she take the stand or no? I believe she had the little girl call because she didn't have Jen's number. Okay. KF is the minor. When they're saying KF and they're the nieces, John's niece and nephew. The parents passed away. He took care of the kids. Okay. All right. We're almost done. So she screams she hates him. Lastly, on January 29th, the defendant was transported from the scene of the Good Samaritan Medical Center. While there, blood was drawn pursuant to her medical diagnosis and treatment at the facility. The ethanol results from said blood records indicated that at 9:08 a.m. on January 29th, I'm assuming January, her blood had a reading of 93 milligrams per decibel. Nicholas Roberts, a forensic toxicologist from the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory, performed both a serum conversion and a retrograde extrapolation of said result, opining that Miss Reed's BAC at the time on the 29th was 0.07 through 0.08%. From his retrograde extrapolation analysis, he opined that her BAC around that time period of 12:45 a.m. would have been between, what the hell? Oh, okay, that's it right there. Between, I was like, what? Between 0.13 and 0.29. The defense did a decent job of trying to poke holes at that number and, like, you know, whatever, their extrapolation, whatever. Really interesting document. Really, really interesting document. Now, the next document we'll do is on Friday. We'll do the probable cause affidavit, I think. I mean, if we have time, maybe I'll do 2 documents on Friday. We'll do the probable cause. I don't know what else I need to see from the prosecution side, and then if you want, we can take a look at the defense after. BL sent me this video. This will help you with the vehicle damage to Karen's car when she hit John's car. Okay, let's check it out. Let's see.
After 2 days of trying, the lawyers in the Karen Reed murder trial just outside of Boston, they got themselves 11 of the 16 jurors that they need. And if those people have not been following this case, they have no idea what they're in for. Karen Reed is the financial analyst and the college professor who's accused of murdering her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, a longtime Boston police officer. Happened back in January of 2022, and ever since then, the investigators have been building their case against her. But the doubters have been getting louder and louder. The investigators say that she backed over her boyfriend after a drunken argument and then left him to die in a snowbank outside of a house party. But Reed's defenders say the evidence does not add up. They say the victim's injuries aren't even the kind you get from vehicle impact, and they claim the investigators planted evidence at the scene, evidence like fragments of a broken taillight from Reed's SUV. None of those defenders is more convinced than that of my next guest. Sean McDonough is a retired DEA supervisory special agent who's investigated this case on his own pretty much full time for a year now. He says he can prove that Karen Reed's taillight was completely intact after the alleged hit and run happened. Take a look at this video from the doorbell cam. It was taken at 5:03 a.m. And 5:03 a.m. is hours after Reed and O'Keefe parted ways. And you can see right there in the circle that Reed's taillight is right where it's supposed to be on her Lexus SUV. I want to welcome to the program Sean McDonough. Sean, I
don't know why I thought it was the other McDonough.
That video is sort of jaw-dropping. It's kind of like the Perry Mason moment, and I wonder if the prosecutors have it, and if they do, how do they explain it?
Actually, first of all, I'm so happy to be here, and thank you. Thank you for covering this. I'm so happy you led with the first picture. The first picture is what the prosecution wants the jurors to believe. Look, that taillight looked like at 12:32 a.m. after John was allegedly hit by Karen Reed. In this video, which is 4.5 hours after Karen allegedly hit John, that light right there has absolutely no wires, no LEDs. All the red is completely gone, which means no red would be reflective, right? There would be nothing. There would be nothing.
Let me see. I guess so.
In a pond, which means.
Take a look at this video from the doorbell cam. It was taken at 5:03
It does look like it's there. I don't know.
a.m. And 5:03 a.m. is hours after Reed and O'Keefe parted ways.
I wish there was other video we could see, but I guess that's...
And you can see right there in the circle that Reed's taillight is right where it's supposed to be on her Lexus SUV. I want to welcome to the program Sean McDonough. Sean, that That video is sort of jaw-dropping. It's kind of like the Perry Mason moment, and I wonder if the prosecutors have it, and if they do, how do they explain it?
So,
Actually, first of all, I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for covering this. I'm so happy you led with the first picture. The first picture is what the prosecution wants the jurors to believe.
It does look like it's intact. Right? Look at this one here.
Back right on here it is, Benny. So she's pulling out in the black SUV, and that's the victim's SUV parked. And the defense says that she makes contact, hits the victim's SUV right there, damaging that back right passenger side tail light. And they also claim you can see, the victim's SUV move, indicating that there was a collision. And then as she pulls away, they say that you can tell there's missing parts of.
I don't know. It's still so. Is this the same time frame? Because I feel like this one you can see more. Is this the same thing as this? Is this the same thing? Same that morning?
SUV right there, damaging that back contact, hits the victim's SUV right there, as that she makes contact, hits the victim's SUV right there, damaging that back right passenger side tail light. And they also claim you can see, the victim's SUV move, indicating that there was a collision. And then as she pulls away, they
yeah, bro.
They say that you can tell there's missing.
I don't know.
That there was a collision, and then as she pulls away, they say that you can tell there's missing parts of the taillight coming.
Right, but it would have been missing if it was a result of striking Officer O'Keefe at that time. Also, here's a closer look at it. Once again, as we're backing up here, keep your eye and see if you see any movement here from the other car.
I don't know. It's not hard to. Let's see. Do it again.
If you see any movement here from the other car. It's very possible.
It's very possible. The prosecution doesn't say there's contact.
If the whole case was, how did the tail light get broken? You've got reasonable doubt right there.
Reasonable doubt, yes.
You've got reasonable doubt right there, because you can't tell, but it's very reasonable to think that at that point you could have broken that tail light. Yep. Okay. Wow. And that's defense evidence that we got our hands on. Great job. Okay, today's hearing, anything else? Any other headlines?
So a lot of the matters were put off because the prosecution wasn't.
In a second. And trial attorney Sue Ann Robinson is with us. In Houston, Texas, criminal defense attorney Carmen Rowe. And in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, law professor at Emory University and Georgia Innocence Project board member Molly Palmer is with us. Okay, so this isn't a case where we're saying, hey, it's just a little doubt that you can prove this. Is it
clear possible involvement in a murder is a conflict? And if
all right, listen to Sean McDonough.
To be here, and thank you for covering this. I'm so happy you led with the first picture. The first picture is what the prosecution wants the jurors to believe. Look, that taillight looked like at 12:32 a.m. after John was allegedly hit by Karen Reed. In this video, which is 4.5 hours after Karen allegedly hit John, that light right there has absolutely no wires, no LEDs. All the red is completely gone, which means no red would be reflective, right? There would be nothing illuminating. At 5:03 to 5:08, you see her back in. She cracks the backup light onto Officer John O'Keefe's Traverse, which is behind there. See those tire tracks? She goes in at an angle, which means she definitely made contact with that side light that comes out 5 inches. We documented this. And see right there, that tire on John's car moves forward.
Let's see.
That 5 inches. We documented this. And see right there, that tire on John's car moves forward. It didn't go backwards. So the angle directs the motion of the vehicle when it got struck. So when as that video continues on, if you keep going with that video a little bit more, it's completely intact. And this is how it all came about. The lead detective, Michael Proctor for the Mass State Police, This is how I found it. In his affidavit, he said the taillight, the right rear taillight, right side, was shattered and a large piece missing. And I said, wait a minute. The two witnesses told him that there was a crack. And we analyzed this back and forth, and we let the video play all the way through. I went to Lexus dealerships. They told me not only do they have, it's a polycarbonate plastic, one of the hardest plastics you can have. The law of physics, there you go, right there. See all that red? In the final picture where the prosecution is saying this is how it ends up, it's no way. So polycarbonate plastic, very hard. 6,500 pounds going into a 220-pound male human will topple him over. It will not crack up the taillight in 37 plus pieces. Absolutely impossible. Mistake number one, they did not know this video existed when they did this crime scene later in the night. This video came about 2 days later. So when they made the decision,
again, just listen, I've got only 30 seconds left, but I've got to ask you, you've been in this business a long time. How are the prosecutors going to explain this away? Because I guarantee you what you have, defense attorneys will use.
Oh, they have it all. They have that and more. I don't know how they intend to convince a jury of 12 that that car hit John O'Keefe. There is no way.
Wow. Okay, so listen, we're only at the tip of the iceberg on this case. I'm going to have you back, Sean McDonough, because this case has gripped me, and we're only at jury.
Well, that is interesting. I don't know what to say about that. This particular part here, with this the taillight. I wish that I would have read this the CommonWealth thing first before watching the trial, because I would have been looking more closely. Ruby says, I've gotten rear-ended twice by someone going at least 45 to 50. The taillights never break like that. Then he says, back to the front of the basement. Hey, what's up, ASPR? And so John's car had no damage, though. Butt end of the car and butt dial in case. All right. Well, I guess that's it for now. I will be back in the morning. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I'm very curious. I'm enthralled in this case now. Throwing into this case. See what tomorrow brings. Who's going to take the stand? Bukaki was supposed to take the stand last. I think yesterday was supposed to take the stand. Didn't take the stand. Will they bring Bukaki today? Also, Michael Proctor. I don't know. Is he going to take the stand? Some people are saying that he wasn't. Now some people are saying he is. Is he going to take the stand? That's why Jen and Carrie first said it was cracked. Only years later, Jen says it was all gone. Well, yeah, I feel like there's going to be some twists and turns from the prosecution as far as what they're going to pull out and present, the witness testimony. All right, guys, man. I guess have a good night. Yo, make sure you're subscribed to the second page, Mel Space CC, because if there's a chase or something pops off tonight, I'm gonna go live on the second page, right? Because to save the notification for tomorrow morning, and I'm also gonna transfer people to tomorrow's stream. All right. I'll see you guys in the morning. Peace. Bye. Bloop, 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 bloop. Tiara.